You've watched her on TV, seen her share her recipes, and followed her life on the ranch. But what if we told you that there's a side to Ree Drummond's story that's never been fully revealed? Behind the scenes of the bright kitchen and the picture-perfect family, there's a battle no one expected, a quiet fight that's been brewing for longer than we know. Lad Drummond, her rock, and the man she built a life with, has faced his own struggles. But now, it's Ree's health that's starting to raise eyebrows. With her recent drastic weight loss, fans are wondering if the woman we've known for years is going through something far more serious than anyone realized. The rumors and the whispers are only just the beginning, because what's really going on behind closed doors at the Drummond Ranch is something you would have never imagined. Ree Drummond's journey to fame. If you've ever flipped on the Food Network or stumbled across a bright red-haired woman cooking up savory meals in a rustic kitchen, chances are you've seen Ree Drummond, the woman the world knows as the Pioneer Woman. But behind the camera, the blog posts, the cookbooks, and the fame, there's a story that's so much deeper than just food and fame. Ree Drummond was born as Anne Marie Smith on January 6, 1969, in Bartlesville, Oklahoma. She grew up in a typical American home, the daughter of an orthopedic surgeon and a stay-at-home mom. She was one of 4 siblings, and by all accounts, Ree's childhood was comfortable and filled with structure. Her family was well off, and she even attended private school. From a young age, Ree stood out. Not because she was loud or attention-seeking, but because she was thoughtful, clever, and a little bit different. She loved reading and writing, and even back then, she had a way with words that people noticed. But no one could have guessed just how far that gift would take her. After high school, Ree packed her bags and headed to Los Angeles to attend the University of Southern California. She majored in journalism, then changed her mind and majored in gerontology, the study of aging. That was such a big move, but for Ree, it was almost normal due to how curious and open she could be. While in college, Ree lived the city life, enjoying trendy cafes, yoga classes, and a dream of one day living in Chicago and working in the big leagues of corporate America. She had big plans, including attending law school after college graduation. However, fate had other plans, because after college, Ree took a break. She planned to spend a few months at home in Oklahoma before making the move to Chicago. But during that stopover in her hometown, everything changed when she met the man who would become her husband. But how did this seemingly ordinary woman turn into a full-blown media empire? Well, it all began in 2006. Ree was a stay-at-home mom living on a cattle ranch in the middle of nowhere. She had 4 kids, a husband who worked the land every day, and a life that most people would call quiet. But Ree had stories to tell, and she really wanted the world to hear them. So, she started a blog. Initially, it was just a medium to share funny moments from life on the ranch, recipes she was cooking for her family, and little reflections on motherhood. And she named it The Pioneer Woman. At first, it was just friends and family who read it. But soon, her honest voice and homey recipes began drawing in people from all across the internet. What made her stand out was the fact that she wasn't trying to be fancy. Her photos weren't polished, her kitchen wasn't glamorous, and her life didn't seem curated. And that's exactly why people loved her. Her cinnamon rolls became absolutely legendary. Her down-to-earth writing style was addictive, and she had a way of making readers feel like they were sitting right there at her kitchen table, sipping iced tea and chatting about life. And it wasn't long before the blog exploded, and in a matter of time she went from blog to bookstore to broadcast. With a growing fan base, publishers took notice. And in 2009, Ree published her first cookbook, The Pioneer Woman Cooks, Recipes from an Accidental Country Girl. It was a huge hit with simple recipes, step-by-step photos, and that same warm tone that readers had come to love. But she didn't stop there. In 2011, Food Network came calling. They offered Ree her own cooking show, and just like that, the pioneer woman became a household name, not just online, but on television screens across America. Most people don't realize that the show was filmed at the Drummond Ranch in Pawhuska, Oklahoma, her actual home, and featured Ree cooking meals for her family, friends, and ranch hands. There was no flashy studio. Just a real woman in a real kitchen making hearty, comforting food with a lot of butter and a lot of love. The authenticity struck a chord. While other celebrity chefs were slicing foie gras in five-star kitchens, Ree was flipping grilled cheese and frying chicken fried steak in cast-iron skillets. Everyone loved that her recipes weren't intimidating. They were comforting. But Ree wasn't just cooking. She was building an empire. Over the years, she's released multiple best-selling cookbooks, a memoir, children's books, and even a home goods line. But she didn't stop at books and baking. In 2016, Ree and her family opened the Mercantile in downtown Pawhuska, a combination restaurant, bakery, and store that revitalized the town and brought in tourists from all over the country. What used to be a quiet, sleepy main street turned into a bustling destination thanks to Ree's vision and influence. But she didn't stop there either. Then came the boarding house, which was a boutique hotel, P-Town Pizza, and Charlie's Sweet Shop, all thriving businesses and all connected to Ree's unique blend of charm and creativity. What started as a little blog had turned into a full-scale lifestyle brand, and Ree had reached levels she only dreamed about. But through it all, she stayed grounded. She didn't move to Hollywood or try to change her image. Instead, she stayed on the ranch, filming her show and raising her family while juggling appearances, cookbooks, and business ventures. What really makes Ree Drummond special isn't the biscuits or the branding. It's the honesty. She's been open about her struggles with parenting, about the messiness of ranch life, and even about the times she's felt overwhelmed. She laughs at herself. She admits when things go wrong, and that's what makes people trust her. She's clear proof that you don't need a glamorous past to build a meaningful future. You don't need a perfect plan. Sometimes the best things happen when life veers off course. And for Ree, the biggest veer of all was falling in love with a cowboy named Lad. Because the truth is that the blog, the show, and the brand would probably not exist without the moment she met him. And that moment changed everything for her. But how does a city-loving, sushi-eating woman fall head over heels for a fourth-generation cattle rancher with dirt on his boots and a love for Marlboro Reds? Ree and Lad's love story. If Ree Drummond's life were a novel, the chapter where she met Lad would be the moment everything changed. Up until then, she had her sights set on big city dreams and career goals. But all it took was one unexpected night, one handsome cowboy, and one conversation for the entire story to take a completely different turn. It happened in a smoky bar in her hometown of Bartlesville. Ree had just moved back temporarily, and it was supposed to be a quick pit stop before starting her big girl life in the city. She wasn't looking for love, and she definitely wasn't looking for a cowboy. But there he was, tall, quiet, rugged, and wearing Wranglers. Lad Drummond wasn't like anyone she'd ever dated. She later revealed that what caught her attention that night were his hands. They were big and strong, and when they finally spoke, she felt an instant connection. In a later interview, she confessed, "He was just completely different from all the boys I'd been crazy about. I don't mean to make it sound like Maria and Tony in West Side Story, but I was just sort of like, oh boy." My knees were weak. Something about Lad stuck with her. She didn't even know his name at first. She referred to him as the Marlboro Man because of his cowboy vibe and that steady, smoldering look in his eye. She left the bar that night thinking about him and expecting his call the following morning. But for a while she didn't. Weeks went by, and it turned into months. Ree went about her life, job hunting and planning her move to Chicago. And then, out of nowhere, he finally called her. He asked her out to dinner for their first date, and it turned out to be an amazing one. Not because of fancy food or fireworks, but because they were a match. They talked, laughed, and connected. He was different from anyone she had ever known. He was grounded, genuine, and so deeply tied to the land he worked on. Lad wasn't trying to impress her, and he definitely wasn't putting on a show. And that's what impressed her the most. Ree later confessed that she was smitten, but also confused, because this wasn't the life she had planned. She wanted the big city life, while Lad wanted to remain on his ranch. They dated quietly, and slowly, Ree's image of her future began to change. She decided she wasn't moving to Chicago anymore because she had fallen in love with a man who owned a cattle ranch in the middle of Oklahoma. Ree and Lad got married on September 21, 1996, at a simple church ceremony followed by a reception filled with family and friends. The event wasn't extravagant, but it was full of love and laughter. And behind the scenes, Ree was already beginning to adjust to her new role. After their wedding, the newlyweds spent their honeymoon in Australia and began their beautiful life together. Married life for the Drummonds wasn't about candlelit dinners or fancy vacations. It was about early mornings, muddy boots, and a lot of learning curves. Ree had to figure out what it meant to live on a working cattle ranch. She learned how to drive a pickup truck, how to cook for hungry ranch hands, and how to raise kids while the nearest Starbucks was 100 miles away. But through it all, Lad was by her side, always supportive and steady. He always showed his love in the way he worked, the way he made sure the family was taken care of, and the way he trusted Ree to find her own way. They started having children soon after marriage. Their first child was Alex, followed by Paige, then Bryce, and finally Todd. Later, they fostered their son Jamar. Their house was loud, chaotic, full of laughter, and constantly smelling of something delicious coming out of the oven. While Ree was taking care of the babies and discovering her love for cooking, Lad was working long hours managing their sprawling ranch. The two of them weren't always in sync in the traditional sense because they lead very different daily lives, but they were united in the things that mattered most, like faith, family, and an unshakable respect for each other. When Ree's blog exploded and TV cameras started showing up at their door, you might think things would shift, and that maybe the fame would pull them apart or create tension. But it didn't, because their marriage was never based on the glitz and glamour. It was based on something stronger. Lad wasn't interested in being a celebrity. He didn't want the spotlight. He stayed in the background, still waking up before sunrise to feed cattle and fix fences. And even as Ree became a household name, Lad remained the same steady presence. In interviews and blog posts, Ree has often shared sweet little anecdotes about their relationship, like how Lad always calls her affectionate names and how they still hold hands on drives through the ranch, or how he always manages to find time for her, even during the busiest seasons. But of course, even the strongest marriages face trials. Life doesn't come without bumps in the road. And in recent years, the Drummonds have faced some of the biggest challenges yet, including some tests that would shake even the most solid foundations. What happens when the person you've leaned on for decades suddenly needs someone to lean on themselves? What happens when the dream life you built on love and land starts to look a little more fragile? The Drummonds' challenges. Every couple has their battles, and even the strongest love stories are often tested with seasons of silence, sacrifice, and sheer survival. For Ree and Lad Drummond, life wasn't just all sunshine and roses. Their life was real, raw, and, at times, relentlessly hard. Behind the scenes of fame, ranch life, and recipes, this couple faced more than their fair share of heartache and hardship. Some of these challenges have been emotional, some physical, and some even shook the very ground they'd built their lives upon. One of the toughest storms came when Lad's body, which had been so strong and steady for decades, suddenly gave way. For years, Lad Drummond had been the definition of grit, a true rancher in every sense. He was up before dawn, working cattle in the biting Oklahoma wind, lifting heavy equipment, fixing fences, and driving tractors, day in and day out, without complaints or slowing down. But even cowboys have limits, because in March of 2021, everything changed in a matter of seconds. Lad and one of their nephews were each driving fire trucks on the ranch to help battle a wildfire that had broken out on a neighbor's property. It was a very chaotic, dangerous situation due to the windy, dry, and unpredictable environment. But in the thick of it all, something even more devastating happened. Lad's truck collided head-on with his nephew's. The crash was serious. Lad was thrown into the windshield and his neck broke in 2 places. At first, no one even knew how bad it was. His nephew sustained multiple injuries, including broken ribs, and was placed in an ambulance, while Lad was immediately airlifted in a helicopter straight to the hospital. It wasn't until later, when doctors scanned his neck, that the truth came out. One of the fractures was near the base of his skull, and it was a miracle he hadn't been paralyzed. It was an even bigger miracle he was still alive, and Ree would later call it one of the scariest moments of their lives. Less than 24 hours later, Lad was rushed into surgery to have the neck fractures repaired. The hardest part of the whole ordeal wasn't the pain, it was the stillness. For a man like Lad, who measured life in labor and felt most himself when working, being told to rest was like asking him to stop breathing. He had to wear a neck brace for weeks. He couldn't drive, couldn't work, and wasn't allowed to lift heavy equipment. And he definitely couldn't be the ranch's rock like he always had. Ree later said, "It's tough for anyone to have a broken neck and recover from cervical spine surgery, but I would say it's a little tougher on men who do not tend to be good patients, and I dare say it's possibly even tougher on men of the agriculture ilk, who never admit they're in pain and whose daily lives revolve around getting out there and tackling whatever physical task their job demands." So, it was pretty tough on Lad in those first weeks. And yet, even in recovery, Lad still found a way to stay a bit active. Ree said he broke a few medical rules when he got in his pickup and drove around the ranch on day 4. He took off his neck brace to walk his daughter down the aisle a few weeks later, and even found a way to ride a horse at some point. But immediately, he got the green light to return to work. He did, still in his neck brace, hauling feed buckets and climbing tractors like nothing ever happened. But the truth was, the injury shook them both. For Ree, it was a wake-up call. Her cowboy wasn't invincible. The man who had carried the weight of their world on his shoulders for so long suddenly needed help himself. And watching him heal and stubbornly keep going was both inspiring and terrifying. But the accident wasn't the only challenge the Drummonds have faced. In fact, for years, they have been carrying a silent load. You see, fame brought them success, but it also brought pressure. Raising 5 kids while running a massive ranch, filming a TV show, writing cookbooks, managing a brand, and keeping a marriage alive is no small feat. Their lives looked picture-perfect on screen, but the day-to-day was far from easy. There were some tensions, and it sometimes came from living in 2 different worlds. Lad in the field, Ree in front of the camera. It meant that they had different rhythms, different roles, and sometimes different realities. And yet, they always found their way back to each other. Through the chaos, they leaned on their shared sense of humor, their deep respect, and the love that started in that smoky bar all those years ago. Another challenge, though rarely talked about, was the emotional toll of parenting in a high-stress world. You see, the Drummonds didn't just raise kids, they actually raised them in the spotlight, and this came with its own kind of weight. With how busy their lives became, it was easy to become worried about being stretched too thin, about being present enough, and about holding it all together while things were constantly changing. But through it all, Lad was her constant, and according to Ree, her children are like her best friends. She once said, "I feel like I have a unique and fun relationship with each and every one of my siblings. And even though we're all very different personality-wise, we all just have so much fun together. I feel like I am more myself with my siblings than I am with anyone. But no matter how strong someone is, there comes a point when even the most resilient hearts are tested." For a while, things seemed to settle for the Drummonds. The ranch kept running, the show kept filming, and life moved forward. But behind the smiles and schedules was another struggle quietly beginning to unfold in their lives. This time, it wasn't Lads who was going through something, it was Ree, and it would take everything they had to face what was coming next. Ree's health challenges and rumors. It's easy to look at Ree Drummond, the smiling redhead on television, laughing in her kitchen while whipping up comfort food, and assume she's always full of energy, always on top of things, and always okay. But behind the flour-dusted counters and sunny blog posts, Ree was quietly going through one of the biggest transitions of her life. It started out as just a feeling, not just in her body, but in her spirit too. It was then she discovered that her body, which had served her faithfully for decades, was beginning to change in new ways, and she knew something had to change. The turning point came in early 2021, after a difficult season of life, especially after Lad's near-fatal neck injury. Ree decided it was time to take her own health seriously. She was nearing her mid-50s and knew she wasn't where she wanted to be physically or emotionally. The long days of working, filming, writing, and being a mom to 5 kids had taken a toll. She wasn't sleeping well. She felt stiff and tired. Her weight had crept up over the years, and with it came a host of little discomforts that she could no longer ignore. So, Ree made a decision to lose some weight. Ree's approach to weight loss wasn't extreme. In fact, it was refreshingly simple. She cut calories, went on a diet, and implemented portion control. She also tracked her progress. For exercise, she made sure she walked nearly every day, and she even tried out Pilates. And most importantly, she stayed consistent, even on the days when she didn't feel like it. Over time, the results spoke for themselves. Ree lost over 50 pounds, but even more than the number on the scale, she felt stronger, lighter, and happier. Still, even with the changes, some things couldn't be avoided. Like aging. Ree has always had a sharp sense of humor, and she's never shied away from joking about getting older. But there were moments when reality hit hard. One of those moments happened in 2024 when she had to have her wisdom teeth removed. You wouldn't expect it from the queen of comfort food, but even Ree Drummond isn't safe from one of life's most annoying curveballs. She got a wisdom tooth pulled, and it wasn't one of those quick in-and-out dentist visits either. This one had been bothering her for a while. Fans were surprised when she casually mentioned it, because for someone known for cooking up huge buttery meals, it was weird seeing her stick to soft foods and ice packs. But here's the thing, Ree handled it the same way she handles most tough stuff, with a little humor and a whole lot of patience. In fact, she even asked not to be sedated through the process. But Ree's health journey hasn't been just about losing weight. It's been about redefining how she wants to live this next chapter of her life. She's learning to listen to her body, to say no more often, to rest when she needs to, instead of pushing through exhaustion. She's also learning to let go of the pressure to be perfect for her audience, for her family, and even for herself. On her blog, Ree has written candidly about her changing routines, her relationship with food, and the ups and downs of aging in front of millions. She's admitted to having moments of insecurity and days when she struggled to stay motivated or felt discouraged. But through it all, she stayed honest. And that honesty has endeared her to fans even more. Of course, in the age of the internet, Big physical changes don't go unnoticed. As soon as Ree started appearing in slimmer form on her Food Network show and social media, the comments came pouring in. Some were supportive, others were invasive, and a few crossed the line entirely. Speculation grew about how Ree had lost the weight. Had she undergone surgery? Was she on some secret medication? Was something wrong? While Ree has always been transparent about her approach to weight loss, which involves calorie control, regular exercise, and strength training, rumors still suggested she might have turned to weight loss medications like Ozempic or Wegovy. But Ree has made it clear that she has not used any such medications, and then came the whispers. Some people began to wonder if her weight loss wasn't a personal health decision at all, but a symptom of something more serious. Some even started tossing around the word cancer. For Ree, these rumors were difficult to ignore, and she made sure to address a few of them, clarifying that the weight loss was completely intentional. She also reassured fans that she was very okay, healthy, and stronger than ever. Amidst the swirl of rumors, Ree has made it clear that she's been focusing on the joys of family life. In December 2024, she welcomed her first grandchild, Sophia Marie, born to her daughter Alex and son-in-law Maurizio. Ree has embraced her new role as a grandmother with enthusiasm, often sharing heartwarming moments and photos of Sophia on her blog and social media. The Drummond family has always been close-knit, and recent events have only strengthened their bond. Ree's daughter Paige made the decision to leave her corporate job in Dallas and return to the family ranch in Pawhuska, Oklahoma. Embracing the ranch lifestyle, Paige has been working alongside her family, reconnecting with her roots. Ree herself has been reflecting on life's transitions. She recently moved out of the iconic farmhouse featured in her Food Network show, opting for a new home that better suits her current needs. While the move marked the end of an era, it also signaled a fresh start, allowing Ree to create new memories with her family. As she navigates the complexities of public life, Ree remains grounded in her values. She continues to share her culinary creations, family stories, and personal reflections with her audience, fostering a sense of community and connection. At the end of the day, Ree's journey serves as an inspiration to many. Her resilience in the face of problems and her ability to balance personal challenges with public responsibilities are proof of how strong she is. What do you think about Ree's weight loss? Let us know what you think in the comments below. And if you love juicy deep dives into celebrity lives, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon so you never miss a new video.